Thanks for listening to the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, here to help educate, motivate, and put you on the right path to take control of your health through weekly discussions on topics in the medical field, public health arena, and in your community. And now your host, Dr. Barry.
Hey everybody, this is your host, Dr. Barry Pierre, your favorite board-certified internist, host of the Lunch and Learn with Dr. Barry, your favorite podcast for patient advocacy, helping you empower yourself for better health. We are bringing you the intro for episode 90, which is 90, which, as I'm saying this out loud, surprises me. Especially when I think about where I was at when I started episode 1. And we're going to talk a lot about that today as far as kind of looking back at the new year and, what I have in store and what, did I leave behind, right? So definitely going to be an exciting episode. Like I said, we're at 10 episodes away from 100. So definitely exciting things, and definitely glad to be a part of all that's kind of wrapped around. So the title of today's podcast is Giving Thanks to Another Year, but Where Do We Go Now, right? And this is one of those things that I like to either do a blog or a podcast, especially around this time of the year. What's so important about this time of year is actually my birthday. So this past weekend, depending on when you're listening to this past weekend, I just turned 36. And I always do a little self-reflection because I think you always should be doing self-reflection. But I just turned 36. I started doing some self-reflection on my life, right? I wasn't having a midlife crisis, but I was kind of looking around and saying, hey, look at all the stuff I've done in the past year, and I'm thankful for being this past year, right? So we're going to talk today about the past. We're going to talk about the present. We're going to talk about the future. And if you have not had a chance, make sure you go ahead and subscribe to today's podcast and, leave a 5-star review, especially if you're on Apple iTunes. Those are always much appreciated here on this end. And just sit back, get ready for another great episode here with the Lunch and Learn and Dr. Barry. This episode is brought to you by the Lunch and Learn Community Store, where we are living out the motto, empower yourself for better health. In the Lunch and Learn Community Store, you can get your favorite t-shirts, ebooks, as well as other related products by Dr. Barry. Head over to shop.drpiersblog.com and get a chance to get 10% off your first purchase by using the coupon code EMPOWER10. Again, shop.drpiersblog.com. Live out the motto, empower yourself for better health. All right, Lunch and Learn community. So last weekend, depending on when you're listening to this, right, December 15th was my birthday. It was actually number 36. It was a great time. Why? Because I was off. And if you listen to me in the past, you know that being off on my birthday isn't always guaranteed. So when I do get a chance to be off and not have to study for anything, and I'm going all the way back to when I was a medical student, pre-medical student, and I wasn't having to study for a final coming up, it's always a bonus. So happy birthday, 36 years old. And, you start getting older, right? And most of the time you spend more time kind of looking back, thinking about hey, what did I do this past year, more than actually celebrating the day. And this year was no different, right? I'm much more reflective in how I celebrate my accomplishments more than anything else. So 36th birthday, first of all, I didn't have to do anything, right? Which is always a bonus. All I did that day was I went to my kids' holiday school pageant. They did a little singing, or they were supposed to do some singing, but they ended up, getting a little stage fright, which is okay. I wish they got stage fright when they're at home, but that's a whole nother discussion, right? So went to the holiday pageant, came home, did nothing, had nothing to do, which is even more of a benefit and stuff that I definitely thoroughly enjoyed. And I spent most of the time just kind of thinking about hey, what happened this past year? Who should I be thankful of? Who should I be thanking in that regards, right? So I'd be remiss, right, not to thank the Lunch and Learn community, and not only those who listen to my podcast, right, like you're doing right now, but those who read the blogs, those who watch the videos, right? Those who read my emails, right? Those who read my messages, right? So all like the Lunch and Learn community who's been rocking with me since really the beginning, right? I have to, just think, and I really have to think on an annual or sometimes a daily basis, really. But I always like to take the time to thank you guys for, helping me be where I'm at now, because obviously if you guys weren't reading and watching and listening, I wouldn't be doing what I do now. So when I look back, right, and we're gonna talk about like two different things, right? Like, what was I doing last year before my birthday, right? In terms of the thought processes, where I was at in my day job, in my quote unquote side job, and what did I do since my last birthday? It was definitely two different scenarios, right? Two different story trends that thankfully I was able to grow and move from. But again, you can't grow and move until you know where you're at, right? So we'll focus on my day job first, right? And I always talk about my day job being, my main job, right? That's, what I do on a day-to-day basis. And, that's, as a new program director, right? So I was still, probably like December of last year, I was about 6 months in to my tenure as a program director. I was knee deep into the ERAS season. For those who are medically inclined, you know what the ERAS season is. And I was still kind of learning my way, trying to, establish who I was. Again, I was a young program director, almost learning on the fly. And while I was learning on the fly, I also had to work on getting our program accredited from an ACGME standpoint, which again, if you're medically inclined, you understand what I'm talking about. Really not important for a Lunch and Learn community because we don't have to go that far. But, I was getting us ACGME accredited. I was, going through interviews, going through residence, just trying to establish myself, who I was as a program director, all of those things kind of happening, right? So I found myself balancing being a teacher for my residents and my medical students, being a hospitalist. Again, this was a new job change. Before I was doing outpatient medicine, now I was doing inpatient medicine. And then I was learning how to be an administrator, right? One of those hats that I never liked, but I knew I had to do to advance. And as a physician, one of those things that we tend to do is that stuff that we tend not to like, we want to put off and give to someone else. And essentially we're giving away our power structure, right? So I want to say, no. I need to make sure I'm just as equipped in the administrative aspect of medicine as I am in the clinical aspect of medicine and the academic aspect of medicine, right? So here was this job helping kind of blend all three. So again, I wanted to make sure I was the best I could be, especially at the young age. Again, I'm just 35 at that time. And in that regard, I'm 34 at that time, leading up to my 35th birthday. And then let's talk about the side job, right? The side job is what peer medical consulting is and when we encompass about what peer medical consulting is, right? It's the blogging, it's the podcasting, it's the video blogs, right? It's the consulting work I do on the side when I talk about the tech aspect, right? And those who are in the Lunch and Learn community who have been able to benefit from that understand that arm of peer medical consulting, right? So it's kind of all of those things kind of wrapped into one. And I was still, in December, trying to go through the groove of learning how to podcast. Again, at this time, I'm still maybe 6 months into podcasting as well. Lo and behold, not only did I learn how to be a program director that year, right? I was learning how to be a podcaster as well. And, it wasn't as consistent, right? I'll be honest, right? I wasn't as consistent as I could have been, right? But it was just one of those things where time and balance, was an issue for me that I knew I needed to work on this past year, as well as, really putting myself out there on the consulting side and letting people know that hey, this is something that I do and I do it very well, right? So all of those things were kind of happening, right? Leading up to birthday number 35. And I remember saying to myself, all right, if I hit 35, when I hit 35, these are my goals and plans for the upcoming year, right? These are some of the stuff I wanted to do, right? To make sure that I was on par with everything going on, right? Because if I wasn't going to do something correctly, I didn't want to do it at all, right? That's usually the type A physician motto, right? Like if you're not going to do it 100%, like don't even do it. And unfortunately, most of my physicians follow this to the point where if they don't do it 100% perfectly, they won't do it, right? That's something I had to break out of. Fortunately, I had broken out of that mold by that time. You talk about the podcasting, right, where it wasn't consistent. Even my blogging started becoming, not as consistent, right? And that was more of a time issue and trying to adjust to the schedule when I was outpatient medicine versus when I was inpatient medicine. And even at that time, I was doing lunch and learn videos, and it got to the point where I couldn't do lunch and learn videos because around 12 and 1 o'clock, I was either in a meeting or I was either seeing patients. So that started becoming a little bit more inconsistent as well. So all of these things were kind of coming to a head leading up to my 35th birthday, and I made it a point. Right, I made it a point, for my birthday here on out, I'm going to make a deliberate attempt to make sure that I'm more consistent, right? Deliberate attempt to make sure that I'm putting more time and effort, and something that I need to be putting more time and effort on, right? Like it was crazy that all these things I was doing that I know people were partaking in, that I know people were enjoying, but I wasn't, doing what I needed to do from the business standpoint. So as I look back and say, like, okay, from my 35th birthday on till last week, right? Like, what did I do? How did I change? How did I improve? Right. So again, we're going to go from day job to side job, right? So on my day job, first thing I did was I put pedal to metal, right? So I had a great ERAS season, was able to choose some great residents for my upcoming year. And because of the work effort that I put in that standpoint, I was able to not only become the medical director of our hospitalist group, right? But I was also able to get our program, the hospital, accredited under ACGME, right? So like these check marks that I was, working for and striving for were actually coming into fruition this past year, right? And not only that, I started being thought of more as a leader, right? I started being thought of as more as someone you would come to when you needed stuff to get done, right? So again, I was loving the extra responsibility from it because I knew that I could handle it, right? I think that was one thing leading up to my 35th birthday where I wasn't sure if I could handle the work they were giving me. Right. Like I thought in the back of my mind, like, yeah, I should be able to do this. Right. Because, hey, they're paying me to do it. Right. But like in the back of my mind, like I'm pretty sure there was still some self-doubt saying like, hey, they're giving you a lot of stuff to do. Can you actually do it? And actually seeing those stuff that I was plotting and planning actually coming to fruition was amazing to see. So, those things are happening, and, I'm getting the recognition, not only within the hospital, but outside the hospital, now amongst other colleagues as a program director. I was starting to stand out. And again, I'm young, right? When I go to these meetings, I'm usually one of the younger faces in the crowd. So there's this young guy, again, fresh out of residency, so to speak, like only like 3 to 4 years out of residency, and I'm already a program director, right? Already being able to choose, who's going to be the next resident physician, and having such great power in doing so in that regard. And because I was able to efficiently do these things, right, my schedule started getting better, right? Like I started being able to dictate when I was going to do things, how was I going to do things, how long was it going to take me to do things. And that only helped improve what I was doing on my side, right? Like, because once I knew I wasn't having to, work 11 and 12-hour days on my day job, like I gave myself more time to do stuff for my side job, right? So it was like a hand-on-hand thing, right? Like once I was able to do great with the day job, now the side job stuff came much easier, right? And so now let's talk about the side job, right? So up to my 35th birthday, yes, I had a podcast. Yes, I was doing episodes. Wasn't doing them as consistently as I should, but I was doing them. And on my 35th birthday, I said, you know what? Like, this is not going to continue that way, right? So from the podcasting standpoint, I ended up hiring a coach. I've talked about this in the past, right? If you want to do things, you want to do things correctly, sometimes you just need a coach to help you get over some of those hurdles that you keep on stumbling over, right? So I ended up hiring a coach. She was absolutely amazing. And not only did she, help me get my consistency down, she got my process down as well, which made everything so much more efficient. And like the growth that I've seen over this past year just on a podcast, again, like if you're listening to the podcast, it's likely because of something that my coach, Raina Campbell, taught me how to do, right? So it's one of those things that I'm able to see on a day and day growth wise, saying, hey, like I remember where I was December 2017 before I made the leap to make sure I take this more serious, right? So definitely thankful for that standpoint. The blogging came much more consistent, right? Because again, I talked about the day job. I had more time to do stuff now when I got home, right? So I had more time to do blogs. I had more time to do more influential blogs, more longer, more detailed blogs, right? So not only was I writing, but I was writing for so much more detail that, that took off as well too, because again, I remember where I started, right? I started with people reading the stuff I was doing, right? So, I still had a contingent of people who follow me who don't necessarily listen to the podcast and don't necessarily have time to watch a video, but they'll read pretty quickly, right? So then I was definitely serving that audience, right? And that's really was the crux of all that I'm doing, right? Like, what was I doing to continue to serve the audience that I have, right? Like, so I was serving their needs via podcast. I was serving their needs via blogging. And now that I have my schedule down, now the Lunch and Learn videos, which I've actually changed to the Empower Yourself for Better Health series, right? Like, so now that's able to happen, right? So now that is able to come into fruition. And I think, right, as I record this, we're up to episode 62 of the Empower Yourself for Better Health series, right? So again, we're learning and we're continuing to learn and continue to build on that fundamental pathway of helping to empower those to be more healthy, make healthier choices, to simplify health in their terms so they can empower themselves. And, when they go to their doctor's office and say like, hey, I've learned about blood pressure, I learned about diabetes, but I have some more questions. Now they're more empowered and able to ask those questions versus beforehand, they would just kind of go to their doctor's office with like a blank stare and have no clue what their doctor was even talking about, right? So I definitely loved everything we were doing in that regards. So as we move forward, right, and to 2018 to 2019, some of the stuff that I wanted to do, right? Oh, and sorry, I almost forgot, right? Like I wrote another ebook, right? Like The Power in Affirmation. And that was something that I did because I said, oh, you know what? Like, if I'm going to do some of the things I want to do, I have to hold myself accountable. And what better way to hold yourself accountable is to write it down and then put it out to the public, right? So put it, and I'll put a link to The Power in Affirmation if you haven't had a chance to pick that up. Put it out to the public. It's like, hey, this is what I want to do for the next upcoming years. And I ended up writing it around, I want to say like April, May. Right. So again, it was something that I say, I'm going to put my foot down and say, this is what I want to do. I'm putting it out there. Right. So I remember continue to hold me accountable because that's really the goal of that book. Right. So I put in that ebook out. So now as I look forward to 2019, right. Again, I'm 36 years old. I'm doing well as a program director, doing well as a podcaster, doing well as a blogger, doing well as a vlogger, right? Like, what can I do more, right? Because there's always more you could do, right? Especially when you're trying to be the best that you can be, right? There's always more that you can do. So what can Dr. Barry Pierre do more of in 2019? So I think first things first, right? The website, right? And again, for those who are on my listserv, you already know this, right? But the website, right, drpierresblog.com has been the staple of everything I do, right, in regards to health education, health promotion. But the name kind of like shows where it started, right? It started as this blog. It started as this blog of just me writing. I was a medical student, kind of writing about my day, writing about some medical topics, right? But it's evolved over the years, as you can see, into podcasts, right? It's evolved over the years into videos. So now I had to, the name drpiersblog.com really doesn't fit everything I do. So we're actually going to be changing the website, right? So the website officially will just be drbarrypierre.com, right? And hopefully, depending on when you listen to this, within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to kind of launch that site live. And doing so, right, you'll not only will you see drbarrypierre.com, right, but you'll know that that's me. Right, for one thing, but you'll know that not only do we do blogs, but we do podcasts, we do videos, and I'm also going to be bringing a forum type, which for most people, like, think of it like the messaging board that you may see at WebMD, right? So I'm gonna have a messaging board / forum, a section on the website as well too, right? Because again, I think it's one of those things where having conversations with those who are going through the same issues that you're going through is going to be very paramount. Right, so we're going to do a lot of great things with the website and a lot of exciting plans. So depending on when you listen to this, the site may already be live, or if you listen to this right when it drops, expected by 2019, hopefully with January 2019, the new year comes around, I will have that site live. And remember, if you have not had the chance to be on my listserv, because my listserv listeners who listen to the podcast already know about this, because I told you guys about this like a week or so ago. So join the listserv. Just go to the website. You'll see to join my health community, right? Click join, and you'll be able to hop on my listserv as well. So we're going to be bringing a new website. We're going to be bringing some new innovative things with the messaging board. A lot of discussions going to be on there. And you'll be able to add yourself as a member. You'll be able to talk with other community members. You'll be able to private message them. You'll be able to do a lot of great things on the website. So definitely excited about that. If you read the Power Affirmation, you know that one of the things I talked about was having a new, podcast show. So not only are we going to have a new podcast show, our Pierre Medical Consulting and my wife, who is the CEO of Autism in Black.org, right? She's going to be doing a podcast as well, coming under the umbrella of our podcast network, right? So definitely excited for 2019, right? So because not only you get another podcast show for me, but you're also going to get a podcast from a different host who's absolutely amazing. Of course, I'm biased, right? But she's absolutely amazing, and I think it's going to be great, especially for especially for people and families who are taking care of kids who are on the autism spectrum, who are African American, minority, but really African American, so we can kind of hear our story, get our story out there, as well as kind of leading into what the Power Affirmation. Again, I keep dropping the Power Affirmation because it is something that will kind of tell about some of the stuff I'm doing. I'm going to be writing my first, hard copy book this year, right, or in 2019. So be on the lookout for that. I'm definitely excited for that to occur. And again, for my Learn community listeners on the podcast, we'll definitely have like a giveaway of a signed copy and a t-shirt and some type of nice little giveaway to kind of celebrate that accomplishment. But definitely excited to move on from there. As a consultant, I do a lot of consulting on the side, right? And even though I have a side job doing the podcast, from a consulting standpoint, I definitely plan to make that a lot more visible. I even recently just launched the Facebook page of Pierre Medical Consulting, just so people can kind of see what that is, right? And again, because I think a lot of people, they saw that I was doing the podcast and the blogging, but they didn't really understand like how I was doing it, right? So being able to kind of explain like, hey, this is what Pierre Medical Consulting is. It's a health promotions community company, right? It's a health education company, right? But it's also almost like I like to say a technical support company, right? Where I help people who build landing pages. I help people build sales funnels. I help people create email campaigns, right? Because I've always been techie, right? Like I always say, like if for some reason medicine didn't work, right, I'd be doing something in computers, right? Because I've always had a love for the technology aspect of it. So I'm definitely leaning more into that direction and letting people know, like, hey, this is what I do. I can help you get to your next level as well. So definitely expect to see a lot more things in that regards as far as Pierre Medical Consulting, as far as doing webinars, as far as doing sales funnels and landing pages, all these other things for people, because we're definitely excited there. The podcast, you're definitely going to see much more guests, much more interviews. I want to bring a video component as well. So especially when I have guests, even some people ask me to do videos even when I don't have guests, which I think is like, hey, if they want to hear me recording, I think I could do that kind of live, right? So definitely some plans to do that as well, because we want to make sure we're serving our community, right? Because that's really the goal for all of us entrepreneurs and our physicians who are doing what we do and what we love every single day. We want to help make sure we're serving our community and serving the population. So if they want to see me record this stuff live, and they want to hear me record this stuff live, and they want to ask questions while I'm recording, hey, let's go for it, right? So expect to see that in 2019 as well. And I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more speaking engagements. Again, I got a coach for that, right? Because again, I don't do stuff without getting coaches. Shout out to Felicia Jones. She is the budgetologist. I'll put her link in the show notes, because she was a speaking coach I used this past year as well to kind of help take me to the next level and see where I needed to kind of fill the gaps. So definitely expect me to see me speaking more out on the road as well. And if any of you who are looking for a dynamic speaker, right, which I like to consider myself, if you're looking for a dynamic speaker to talk about health education, health promotional topics, and a few other things in the health umbrella, let me know. Hit my email up. I'm definitely excited to do that. So that being said, thank you guys for an amazing year in 2018. It's been a journey that I would do over again. Like if you asked me to, like right now, I would do every single step, every single bump, every single hurdle. I would do it again because I love to see where I'm at in December 2018 versus where I was at in December 2017. And when December 2019 comes around, I'm going to be doing another podcast just like this to thank you guys again. So you guys have a great and blessed day. Remember, if you have not had a chance or subscribe to the podcast, tell a friend about the podcast. Make sure to share the podcast out. Let the folks know like who you're listening to on a day-to-day basis, or who you're reading on a day-to-day basis, who you're watching videos of on a day-to-day basis. Let your friends know. Let one friend know. Let 5 friends know. Let 10 friends know. Post it on social media. The hashtag is LunchLearnPod, especially for the podcast standpoint. Leave me a 5-star review. I love the 5-star reviews. We're going to start reading more of those again, because those have been absolutely brilliant and beautiful from that standpoint there. So you guys have a great and blessed day, and I'm going to see you guys next week.